Coming up on Chicago Bears Now, we're going to react to LSU's Pro Day. Malik Nabers putting on a show. Jaden Daniels working out as well. We'll talk about that. Also, are the Bears going to trade down from number 9? PFF putting out an interesting trade idea. And is even Colin Cowherd changing his tune on this football team? Lots to get to coming up here in just a few moments. But listen, if you want to get on Chicago Bears Now, load up the comments right now with your questions. Best questions get answered via YouTube Shorts and on social media, and perhaps in a full mailbag video here on the channel. But any questions you have, draft, free agency, trade ideas, whatever it is, load them up in the comments right now. Best ones get answered via some platform in the near future. All right, I'm Harrison Graham. Let's dive into it here. Malik Nabers showing out at his Pro Day today. I put out a YouTube short earlier. We'll expand on it here. He was terrific, and I expected him to test well, but he even blew me away, if I'm being completely honest. I was glad to see that he was 6 foot and around 200 pounds. That's about what he was listed at LSU. They might have listed him at 205, but 6 foot was his height that he was listed at, so it wasn't one of those 6 foot listings, but he's actually 5'10", 6 foot, so plenty big enough. 40-yard dash, he ran 2 of them at range, depending on the scout. The lowest time I saw was 4.33. The highest was 4.4 flat, so pretty damn good. Mid-high 4.3s if you want to kind of average those out. Incredible vertical, 42 inches. Broad jump, really good, 10 feet 9 inches. You add all that up, that's explosive. I mean, this guy is an explosive athlete who's also a really good just receiver as well. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, one of the draft analysts and experts I respect the most, said that there are some who believe Nabers is this draft class's top player. And look, I don't necessarily think that. I think the consensus is not that. It's more so Caleb Williams. But what I do think is there is not much of a chance that Malik Nabers falls to the number 9 overall pick. In fact, some people think he could go higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll compare him to Rome Odunze and MHJ in a little bit. But you kind of look at the top 10 picks right here. Like, I think the Cardinals as early as 4 could take him. I think the Giants at 6, if they don't get a quarterback, could take him. Tennessee could. Atlanta, if he's sitting there at 8, might be like, we don't need a receiver, but he's just too damn good to pass up on. Like, I would be pretty surprised if he fell to 9 to the Bears. Now, is there a chance 4 quarterbacks go? MHJ, maybe Odunze goes ahead of him. Joe Walt, defensive player at 8. Like, yeah, there's an outside shot, but I think Odunze falling to 9 is way more likely than Nabers falling to 9 just because Nabers is the more explosive player at the end of the day. And like I said a minute ago, some teams like Nabers over MHJ. That has been talked about a lot, especially in recent weeks and even as recent as today. So I wouldn't go that far. I like MHJ better, but these 3 guys are pretty close, man. Like, it's a 1A, 1B, 1C situation in my opinion. I do like Marvin Harrison Jr. the most. He's pretty explosive for being 6'4" and over 200 pounds. Malik Nabers, I think, is the most explosive, but he isn't as big as MHJ. Odunze's got really good size like MHJ. He's not quite as explosive as Nabers. Still a really good athlete. Ran in the 4.4s. His broad was good as well. If you get any of these guys to fall to your lap at number 9, that is an absolute home run pick. The question for you, though, is this. Would you trade up for one of the top 3 wide receivers in this draft? Type T for trade or P for pass. Like, you're not going to do that. I'm open to it, man. If 4 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, I think you got to consider at that point. You could trade it for Marvin Harrison. You might be able to trade it for Malik Nabers. So I'm definitely open to it, but I could certainly understand polls staying put at 9 and just seeing who's available. Speaking of the LSU Pro Day, Jaden Daniels, no meeting with the Bears. Well, the Bears were there. Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Kerry Joseph. Shane Waldron wasn't there, but the Bears had a big brass on hand for this Pro Day. And they should, because even if Daniels isn't on their radar, Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas, other LSU players, makes sense. But Ian Rapoport here had a report of who was slated to meet with Daniels after his workout today. Patriots, Commanders, Giants, Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders were the teams that his agent told Rap Sheet, and the Bears are not one of those. Now, Ryan Poles hopped on the Rich Eisen Show yesterday and said that quarterbacks, as in plural, will make top 30 visits to Halas Hall. I would think Daniels is one of those, but it is kind of interesting that he didn't meet. They're not meeting with Daniels today or tomorrow. Now, part of that could be this. Daniels may only have time to meet so many teams today because A, Drake May's Pro Day is tomorrow. A lot of these teams are going to go to that. And B, Jaden Daniels' camp might just be like, look, we know y'all are taking Caleb Williams, so I'm going to take an extra visit with another team that actually could draft me, unlike Chicago. And look, I'll be honest. I've said it. I'll continue to say it. Jaden Daniels should not be plan B for the Bears. The Bears should have a backup plan, although the Caleb Williams quote of, I don't have plan B in my life is kind of stuck in my head. Like, I make plan A work, which Caleb Williams is plan A. But you always have to have a contingency if you're the Bears in case something happens. But Daniels should not be that. Why? Because his skill set is very similar to Justin Fields. Like, you could have just kept Fields as your plan B in that scenario. I think Daniels is a slightly worse prospect than Fields was when Fields was coming out. Very similar. He's just skinnier and more, I think, capable of getting injured due to that fact. And he's an older prospect. He's already 23 years old. So Drake May's my plan B. I've made that clear. His pro days tomorrow. The Bears will have some people there, although Ryan Poles will not be one of them. Maybe Daniels really isn't on the Bears roster, or vice versa. Maybe the Bears aren't on Daniels' roster because the heavy lean is Caleb Williams. All right, we'll continue the show in just a moment, but a word from our sponsor, Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in North America and the most used as well. The action on the hardwood is heating up, which means it's the perfect time to start playing daily fantasy if you haven't already. Go download the app right now, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. You got NCAA tournament action, NBA, NHL. I got a little 3-player entry tonight in the NBA, including a couple of Bulls players. I like Ayo Dosunmu, a little goblin play here, which lowers the stat projection from Prize Picks. It's kind of a little safer pick here. 11.5 points. Give me the more on that. DeMar DeRozan, 18 points. Give me the more tonight. Big game against Indiana, a team that does not defend very well. That's actually 18 field goals attempted on that one. And then Brandon Miller, he's been hot for the Hornets, 19.5 points, like the more there as well. Just under 5 times the entry there, so 10 to win 40 or so. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get started today. Link is in the comments and in the description of this video. Go check it out right now. There's nothing better during the NCAA tournament than Prize Picks. Trust me on that one. Link is in the comments and description. All right, let's get to our next story here. Could the Bears trade down from number 9? That's certainly been a rumor, a story, a thought that's been circulating out there, as the Bears do only have 4 draft picks right now. Pro Football Focus proposed a trade with the New Orleans Saints that we'll discuss in a moment. But right now, this is what the Bears got. They got their 2 top 10 picks, 1 and 9. No second. They got a 3rd-round pick, 75, and then a 4th-round pick, 122. And we've talked about it. This is not a draft where you need 7, 8, 9, 10 picks. I thought Ryan Poles made a good point the other day. If these are the only 4 picks they make in this draft, that would be 25 over the 3 drafts he's had. It's over 8 players per draft. So that's still a good number when you think of it in that terms. And if you have 4 or 5 picks in this draft, it's not as deep of a draft, so that's perfectly fine. Now, if you do want to, get an extra pick here, this is an interesting idea from PFF. Basically, you swap 9 and 14 with the Saints. You move up from 75 to 45, so you go from a 3rd round to the 2nd round, send that 3rd back to New Orleans, and then pick up a 5th in the process as well. So go down 5 picks in round 1, go up 30 picks from your 3rd round pick, and then pick up a 5th. I think that's decent value there if you are Chicago. This would be the updated picks you have if you make this trade. You'd have 3 top 45 picks, which is pretty damn good. You could even trade down again from 14 or 45 if you wanted to. 122 and 168, you could even package those 2 to move up earlier in the 4th round or maybe even sneak into the 3rd round. Really what this comes down to is it all depends on who's there at number 9. It really does. Like, if you're the Bears, you've got your tiers of draft picks, your high-level blue chips, your other blue chips, and then kind of your red chip players, which are like good but not players you view as like, players that can be all pro. This is kind of the list of players I've thrown out there as potential options at 9. Like, the no-brainers would be if any of the receivers are there, or Joe Alt could be a good value, or any of the edges. Now, a few of these guys you'd rather trade down for. Like, if it's Jared Verse or Latu, maybe you'd rather trade down. If it's Fuaga or Olufashanu, maybe you want to move down a couple of spots. So, just a hypothetical. Like, if the Bears have 1 to 2 players that they really like at number 9, and then there's a drop-off, they'll probably just take a player there. Now, if there's a tier of 4 or 5 players within that tier when they get to number 9, you're probably more willing to move down 3-4 spots because you know one of those players will still be there. So it really comes down to their board and how they feel about it. But again, like if they're there and there's a guy they love and there's a big drop off after that guy or even just one more player, you just take that player. Like this team needs blue chip players, and if there's one or two of those guys left at that point, then I would expect Ryan Poles to just select that player. This is why you subscribe to the channel, because we got every Bears storyline covered here on this show. Draft news, rumors, trade ideas. If there's any more free agency news, we'll get that covered for you guys as well. Other storylines, we're not going to miss any of it. Subscribe. The road to 100,000 subscribers is here. We appreciate all the love and the support. All right, I had to get out of here on a little Callen Cowherd, who, you know, we've been critical of at times. I have also always added the caveat that he obviously is good at what he does. I mean, he's got a national show. He's got his own podcast network now, so I certainly respect what he does. I've just disagreed with him over the years when it comes to the Bears. But even he seems to be changing his tune on the Chicago Bears. Check out this quote that he said on his podcast recently via The Volume. He said, "The DJ Moore move, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett. I've got to be honest, between Caleb Williams, who I really like, between these offensive pieces, I almost feel like I have new information. I think the Bears got the GM right." I respect Cowherd for kind of being like, look, now that I see kind of like how this is all coming together, I can see how it works. Now, I think those of us who keep a closer eye on the Bears on a day-to-day basis, we've seen this vision for a while, regardless of who the quarterback was, by the way. And it really started with that trade last year for DJ Moore, and you get Darnell Wright in that trade, and it turns into Tyreek Stevenson. Like, Ryan Poles has done a really good job of turning assets into more assets, and it's come together quickly with this roster. And here's the thing, too. Like, forget the past. Like, history's important, but, like, you can't just blindly look at the Bears and be like, well, it's the Bears, and they've never figured out offense and quarterback. Well, they've never invested in this amount of offensive players before, and they've never been in a position to have the roster in this good a shape to draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. Like, take the name off the jersey and forget the history of this franchise struggling to figure out offensive football and quarterback for the most part. It does not take a genius if you're just looking at how this roster is being built to be like, yeah, like that's a good football team. Like, if they perform well, they should win a lot of games. Like, now it's just about hitting on the quarterback. And you've got the number 1 pick. You're going to draft Caleb Williams. You've got a pretty good offensive staff in place. Like, unless he's just a complete bust, which he doesn't have a ton of bust potential considering what the Bears have put in place here, this team's going to be in really good shape unless something goes catastrophically wrong and you're in a position, you've put enough structure in place where you've limited that catastrophic potential, I think. So I think Poles is building it the right way. Even a guy like Colin Cowherd, who has struggled to come around on the Bears over the years, is thinking so as well. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the Bears are, you know, one of the teams with the highest green arrow pointing up, I think, in all the NFL based on just where they were 12, 24 months ago. Do you believe in what the Bears are doing? Type B for believe or D for don't. I'm a believer. Obviously, we got to see it. If you want to be skeptical based on history, hey, like, I can't really blame you, but I feel pretty good about the direction of this thing in Chicago. All right, guys, appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. My name is Harrison Graham. We will be live tomorrow here on the show, 4 o'clock Central Time. We'll also have a video go out tomorrow morning, so stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, and until then, bear down.